So with Kitcaster, did you see that people were having trouble attracting guests? What was there a problem that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the problem I saw largely was with um, entrepreneurs. Okay, I'll just put it this way. As an entrepreneur myself, I get so excited. I want to tell everybody about what I'm working on. And now no one of my friends or family ever wants to hear what I have to say again. I just I just gave them vicious ear beatings. They're like, dude, what happened to the cookie SMS project? I'm like, oh, it's over, but I got a new thing now. And they're like, oh, please don't tell me about it. So if you're a creator, a creative person, you need feedback, but like you run out of like runway pretty quick as
Run
far
out
as like
you
friend.
you run out of ears.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, dude, I don't want to hear about this, man. And you're like, no, come on, please. I'm so excited. So that was really the problem that I saw is that like creative people, entrepreneurs, businessmen, businesswomen, they need an audience. They need a little bit of friction. So they need something to like play with in order to get their ideas, fully validated.
Yep.
And so, I really thought from the beginning, like, hey, podcasting is going to scratch this itch for them. And also there's like a wealth of wonderful podcasts that are, that see the equation of like, I'm going to trade my audience and what I've built for your expertise. And there's something beautiful in that because it's just generally a handshake. Like, hey, thanks so much. I need someone to talk to and you need someone to listen. So let's get into this. And from a Buddhist perspective also, that felt very balanced and fair. There's some kind of like there's a synchronicity that was happening in there
Mm.
and a bit of a spiritual magic. I'll pick up where you were talking about the Buddhism stuff a little bit too, because I think you made an important differentiation and kind of talking to about it as like a spiritual path, which I and not a religious one. And it's interesting. And I think this is kind of a component of the American Buddhist tradition because, I was taught very early on that like Buddhism isn't something you believe, it's something you do.
Mm.
It's a practice that you're involved in. Um, and so, but now, so the practice of Buddhism is the central component to the American tradition. But in Buddhist nations and these countries that have had Buddhism as a central pillar in their lives for 2,500 years, only about 4 or 5% of those people have any kind of contemplative practice or meditation.
Mm.
They have a 95% of people that are like, lighting incense and praying to Buddha or to different pantheon of different spiritual images where it is much more religious in practice. And I don't think there's particularly anything wrong with that at all. I think it's wonderful and there's different things for different folks. But also like because we live in this information age, all of the monks came off the hills and they told all their secrets to folks like us. So what's interesting is that there does seem to be a differentiation of Buddhism as a religion, spiritual practice, and also there's a large number of secular Buddhists where they're total atheists, and yet they still claim to be Buddhist. So, I would never be disrespectful to people that do have the religiosity of it, and there's a certain amount of that resonates with me, but rather it's the actual practice that I think ultimately is what differentiates me from other kind of schisms of Buddhism.
Okay.
To kind of pull back a little bit,